on the operating table, the first thing you want to do is get some blood. Guess what? They didn't have any blood in that hospital because they weren't obliged to carry blood. It wasn't part of the contract. So the long and the short of it was they sent a porter in a taxi to the local NHS hospital, and this is what these private people do. And if you read the book, there's a very good account in there by Max Pemberton, who actually writes for the Daily Telegraph, of working in an A&E department in central London, where people used to turn up in taxis who'd been sent to the A&E department, NHS A&E department, by private hospitals where things had gone wrong and they didn't have the facilities to deal with it. So that's a rather long answer to your question, but they often don't have the facilities. Oh, this guy died, the doctor died on the table because they didn't have any blood to give him. Okay.
Thank you. I could have held it for you.
Big support of the NHS because my mum was a nurse and that. Just a little bit more information. You mentioned about 3 companies that are kind of trying to get in on the privatisation. One was Virgin, one was United Health, the other one was Serco. I thought Serco was like a security company or something like that. Any more information on those 3? And also, as a kind of activist, what would be really good to know is what do you think 3 steps we can actually take to help the NHS not be privatised? You know, if we can organise any direct actions on these companies, it'd be good. I mean, obviously there's petitions and things, but keep up with petitions, it raises awareness, but we really need to take more direct action about this issue. Some of us have looked at occupying empty hospitals before, and we linked up with some doctors and nurses unions and stuff on that, but we'd like to do some more direct action. So if there's any way we can help, what are 1 or 2 or 3 things people can actually do practically to save the NHS?
Yeah, thanks for that question. 2 important points. One is that, as I said when I was talking, these multinational, in fact, these corporations are now supranational, as we know. They span nations. They have brought democracy. So we have got a real problem with them. But on the kind of level that I'm talking about today, as I said, their expertise is in winning public service contracts. And people like Serco came in and they had, none of them had any experience in delivering NHS services. But they do write good tenders, and that's why they win the contracts. And I'm a paediatric radiologist for many years. I was in my office one day and a paediatrician came in looking a bit puzzled, and he said, I've just had a phone call asking whether I'd like to go work in Devon or somewhere. And he said, but why do you think that was? And I said, it's because Virgin have just won I think it was Virgin, have just won the contract to deliver paediatric services in Devon. They didn't have any paediatricians. They then had to start putting together the team to deliver these services. So, you know, all these people, what are they good at? Their security, you know, they run forest fights, they run, you know, the advanced warning, the military stuff, you know, this is just another job for them, and it's just another profit for them. And if they can't make a profit out of it, they will go, and that's what they're doing already. So that's a tragedy. What can we do? Well, you know, we started the campaign. First of all, I would say people are not well informed about this, and the media have done us no favours at all. And you know, I've been away for 3 weeks. Okay, thanks. I've been away for 3 weeks, but I saw on Twitter that John Humphreys, who, as you know, does all the interviewing for Today Pro, a lot of the Today programme, had said to somebody on the Today programme, I'm astonished to hear that 20% of out-of-hours services for GPs have been privatised. Now, if John Humphreys doesn't know what's going on, how the hell can the rest of you know what's going on? So the media have not been very quick to pick this up. So I suggest that everybody needs to be well informed. Of course, we've written the book to inform people, but if you go onto the Red Pepper site, for instance, I've done a piece on there called Myths Busting the NHS, and that's the kind of thing that can be circulated. It's 10 myths about the NHS and why they're wrong, and that's what this book is based on. But you know, if you're activists, you'll have your own organisation. We've got Keep Our NHS Public, which is my organisation, plus I'm in Doctors for the NHS. Come and talk to us about what we can do, because whatever happens with this election, we're not going to stop fighting for this. You know, if the Tories win, we've got a real fight on our hands, and if Labour win, we're also going to have to go and really push our agenda, because for me, they have not been apologetic enough about what happened. under the last Labour government, and they certainly still are not saying they're going to scrap PFI, which has been brought so many hospitals down. All the hospitals are in financial trouble are there because they've got these terrible PFI debts. So our first book, NHS SOS, had a whole chapter at the back about what you can do, but you're all activists here. Come and talk to our organisations and we can work together. Thanks.
She was, yeah, years ago.
Is that, just explain what you meant about voting for the NHS? I was in a marginal, and I have already voted Green by postal vote, so I'm not doing what George was doing, and actively voting I can't bring myself to. I think you forgot to mention vote match, by the way, at that point, but so I don't really know what that means, but I've had a lot of, and kind of related to that, I wondered what you thought about the kind of 38 degrees campaign, because on the whole, I've joined in with that kind of sharing of information on social media, but in Stroud, where we had a campaign to save the NHS that was successful, led by Stroud Against the Cuts, Caroline Bongoy, who writes for Open Democracy on the NHS, yeah? 38 degrees were actually really unhelpful because they just didn't understand what we were doing locally and going up with that. They've been kind of slightly harassing me by email to get out on the streets and get people to vote for the NHS as well. I actually just don't understand what that means in Stroud. You know, we've got a good Labour MP, David Groom, but still part of the Labour Party. Yeah, that was the question I hope nobody would ask actually, because it's a really tough one. We've had more. I belong to organisations, and I've liaised with other organisations, and the huge discussions that have gone on over the last 6 months to a year, I would say, was what do we need to do at this stage for the NHS. There are some people who think that we're either going to have to deal with Tories or Labour dominant something or other, and we'd rather deal with Labour than Tories, and there are other people who simply cannot forgive Labour for what they did under Blair and then Brown, and they don't seem to have a strategy. Having said that, you know, they don't like anybody anymore. Some friends, and I tried to set up a website where you could ask your candidates to commit to 5 pledges for the NHS, and that would then go up online, and you could literally vote for the NHS. And we know what pledges are worth. I just saw something going past saying, you know, click, promise to abolish student fees. So, but at least if people have publicly pledged for things, you can at least attack them for not sticking up for them afterwards. My personal view, and I'm not speaking for anybody else here, I don't vote Labour, but my personal view is we are going to have to vote. We are going to have to deal with Labour-dominated government or a Tory-dominated government, and I do think that there are those in Labour, not all of them, who regret what happened under Blair and Brown, who recognise they went too far and would like to pull back. But I think there are still people in Labour who don't see anything the matter with it, who don't understand that the market is bad. And you know, I spoke at a Labour thing with a lot of Labour activists recently, and I said, you have got to recapture what you did. You know, you created the NHS. It was the best thing you ever did. You know, take all your bloody leaders and lock them in a room with Bevan's autobiography, In the Face of Fear, fantastic book, and with Bevan's speeches. What an inspirational speaker he was. And if you've seen Ken Loach's Spirit of 45, you know, lock them in a room with all those things and do not let them out until they get it about the NHS. And if they don't get it, you can bloody well leave them in there and get some new leaders, because if you don't get it about the NHS, I don't think you're Labour. So to come back to your question, I think everybody's facing a different problem in their constituency. If you live or you know anybody who lives in Jeremy Hunt's constituency, please get them to vote for wonderful Dr. Louise Irvin, who's standing against him. She's fabulous, she's a friend of mine. Even if she could slightly dent his majority, it would just send a message to people that we care about the NHS. What is so frustrating for us who write about it, who campaign about it, is that the Tories should be trailing by a country mile at this stage if the NHS is the voters' number one preoccupation. And they aren't, and it's because we just can't get that message out there. So coming back to you, you know, we've got 4 days to get that message out and to get people to vote for the NHS, and that means, you know, vote screaming Lord Such, but do not vote for the Tories. That's all.
Hi guys, there's the NHS reinstatement bill. There's just a comment that was supported by Caroline Lucas and John McDonnell, a lot of the good people. Unfortunately, one thing that was, well, a couple of things that were pointed out that was wrong with the NHS reinstatement bill was one that the profit motive was still in it. And the second one that's the most concerning is that they wanted to centralize all the PFI debts and then it becomes sovereign debt. And that's the one that actually did strike me, because at this moment in time they said if, ironically, the reason why a number of hospitals cannot be privatized is the fact that they had too much debt. If you remove that, then they can be privatized.
If I had a fiver for every hour I'd spent in meetings where people argued about angels on the head of a pin, I'd be a very rich person and I wouldn't have come home from holiday. You know, we've got some. I absolutely take your points, but this the NHS reinstatement bill, for those who haven't heard of it, was drawn up by one of the original and greatest NHS campaigners, Professor Alison Pollock, who was the person who first came out and said PFI is rubbish, and she got into all sorts of trouble for doing that. And you know, I have great admiration for her.